As the amber glow of dusk stretched across the empty highway, Colonel Amanda Rhodes, two-tour veteran of Afghanistan and decorated Bronze Star recipient, guided her Mercedes-Benz toward Camp Ridge, exhaustion heavy in her bones. She craved nothing more than the comfort of home, the sound of her son's laughter. Then, without warning, flashing lights erupted behind her. Two patrol cars cornered her on the gravel shoulder, their eyes, cold and unblinking, drilled into her out-of-state plates as if they spelled a crime. Before Amanda could reach for her credentials, a sneer cut through the silence. "You ain't calling nobody." Steel cuffs slammed shut around her wrists with a harsh clang, metal biting into her skin. Pain shot up her arms, but she refused to flinch. Around her, that fading twilight seemed to hush, broken only by the distant peal of a church bell pounding like a war drum on her nerves. In that heartbeat, Amanda's training kicked in. She catalogued every detail, the badge number etched in tarnished silver, the smirk twisting each officer's lips, and vowed to remember them all. Every instinct screamed to fight back, but she held still, the weight of her uniform heavier than ever in that moment of injustice. The cruiser's spotlight bathed her in glaring white, casting her long shadow across the cracked asphalt. And as those words echoed again, "You ain't calling nobody," Amanda's resolve hardened. She was not just a suspicious driver, she was a guardian of honor who refused to be silenced. Now, here's where you come in. If your blood is boiling at this blatant abuse of power, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a second of Colonel Rhodes's fight for justice, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Trust me, this is only the opening salvo. In the next video, you'll discover how one routine traffic stop exploded into a national scandal that rattled the White House and the Pentagon. Stay tuned. This story is far from over. 2 days later, the same two patrol officers found themselves seated across from the precinct captain's imposing iron desk, the air thick with tension. Their uniforms felt heavy on their shoulders as the captain, a stern figure of authority, hurled a sheaf of paperwork onto the cold metal surface. Each sheet bore crisp type incident reports, witness statements, and most damning of all, Colonel Rhodes' distinguished service record. "You've tangled with the wrong person," the captain intoned, voice low but unwavering. Before they could muster a reply, the captain's side of the desk vibrated with the insistent ring of a secure line. He glanced down at the caller ID, lips tightening at the sight of those two familiar words, the White House. On the other end came a voice both calm and inexorable, demanding to know how a routine traffic stop had spiraled into a full-blown national scandal. Questions poured through the handset like artillery fire. Why had these officers arrested a decorated Army colonel? How had the local station overlooked her rank and years of honorable service? Meanwhile, back at Camp Ridge, AT, Colonel Amanda Rhodes' reputation remained untarnished. In the crisp morning light, soldiers paraded by her office window, each salute a testament to the respect she had earned through 2 grueling tours in Afghanistan and the receipt of the Bronze Star. Yet across the miles, she had been reduced, for a moment, to a mere suspicious driver in the eyes of 2 men blinded by bias. That disparity, stark and unsettling, struck at the heart of her convictions. In her own homeland, even the uniform she wore could not shield her from injustice. As the captain ended the call, his gaze swept back to the 2 officers, now pale and silent. The echoes of that White House directive still reverberated in the room. Explain immediately, and make it right. No amount of protocol could erase the sting of humiliation they had inflicted, and no simple apology would suffice. In that solemn precinct room, the tide had turned. The question now was not whether Colonel Rhodes would prevail, it was how swiftly the wheels of justice would turn, and whether lessons learned here might ripple outward, restoring faith in a system designed to protect us all. As the cruiser's spotlight bathed the deserted road in harsh white, Colonel Amanda Rhodes felt the full weight of the moment. 2 officers loomed over her, blue and black uniforms creased and impersonal, their badges glinting under the flashing red and blue lights. Before she could react, one of them yanked her toward the hood, pressing her palms flat against the cool metal. "Hands on the car now," barked Officer Murphy, his voice crackling through the megaphone. "Do not move her. We'll treat you like any other suspect." Amanda's breath hitched, but she forced herself to stand tall. "Sir, I'm an active-duty Army colonel. You have no probable cause." A cruel grin twisted across Officer Mallory's face as he rifled through her glove compartment. He pulled out her military ID, turned it over in his hand, and sneered. "Colonel, huh? Funny we didn't see any rank on that driver's license picture." He dropped the ID back onto the car with a thud, then sniffed the air. "Smells like leather and perfume. You sure you're not hiding something under that uniform?" Amanda lifted her chin. "That uniform represents decades of service and sacrifice. If you search me without cause, you're violating my constitutional rights." Mallory laughed, a harsh metallic sound. "Rights? You want rights, Colonel? Let's see how many rights you have when you're sitting in the back of our cruiser." He tightened the handcuffs, metal biting into her wrists. Amanda winced, but refused to cry out. Murphy jabbed a finger at her chest. "You think you're special because you wore a helmet in Afghanistan? Out here, you're just another black woman we find suspicious." The words struck like a blow. Amanda closed her eyes for a brief second, recalling her tours overseas, the moments when life and death hinged on split-second decisions. She opened them again, calm and fierce. "You're abusing your power," she said softly, each word deliberate. "And one day, you'll answer for it." Murphy slammed her papers onto the hood and stepped back, eyes flashing. "We'll see who answers first." As they guided her toward the cruiser, Amanda's mind raced. This wasn't merely a traffic stop, it was a battleground for dignity and justice. And in that battle, she vowed to hold every officer accountable, no matter how many flashing lights tried to intimidate her. As Officer Mallory rifled through Amanda's canvas gloves and tossed her belongings across the cruiser's hood, his partner, Officer Murphy, leaned in with a mocking grin. "Must be nice, huh?" Murphy jeered, voice low and taunting, giving orders instead of taking them. Amanda forced herself to remain still, though her heart thundered. Each chime of the cruiser's speakers echoed in her ears as Mallory's fingers danced over her personal effects. A leather-bound notebook, a set of spare keys, a slender medical penlight. Then, as if on cue, Amanda's phone buzzed against her side. Relief surged, until Mallory yanked it from her grasp. "You ain't calling nobody," he spat, twisting the device in his fist. The screen's glow revealed the words in crisp, urgent letters. Pentagon Direct Line. A flood of realization swept through Amanda. This was no ordinary call, this was her direct conduit to the highest echelons of military command. Murphy scoffed, leaning close enough that Amanda could feel his breath. "Pentagon, huh? Let's see how much they love you when we book you for obstruction." She met his gaze steadily, arms pressed against the cool steel of the hood. "You think those cuffs and flashing lights intimidate me?" Her voice was calm, each syllable measured. "I've had bullets whiz by my head in Kandahar. I've watched comrades fall beside me. You," she paused, letting her words sink in, "you are abusing the very oath you swore to uphold." Mallory's face contorted in anger as he delivered a final twist to the handcuffs. The sharp echo of metal on metal cut through the night air. Murphy stepped back, arms crossed, feigning authority. "Well, Colonel, we'll see if your precious Pentagon cares about a black woman on its doorstep." In that instant, Amanda felt the full weight of their prejudice, cold, unyielding, and utterly personal. But beneath her uniform's crisp folds burned a fierce determination. She would not allow this injustice to stand unchallenged. "Keep the phone," she said quietly, eyes never leaving Mallory's. "Because you're going to need it when the Department of Justice calls." Helber. Under the strobe of red and blue lights, the officers hesitated just long enough for Amanda Rhodes to etch this moment into their memories. And as they guided her toward the back of the cruiser, she carried with her the unshakable conviction that power, once recognized, cannot be crushed by prejudice or by handcuffs. When Amanda Rhodes' cruiser arrived at the precinct, the fluorescent lights inside the booking area cast a harsh glare on peeling paint and scuffed linoleum. The two officers, still flush with adrenaline, were herded into the captain's office like wayward recruits. Captain Stanton, a silver-haired man, renowned for his no-nonsense discipline, strode to his desk and slammed a manila folder down so forcefully the papers inside fanned out on the surface. "Do you realize who you've handcuffed?" His voice boomed, echoing against the bare walls. He flipped open the folder to reveal photographs of Amanda in full dress uniform, her medals gleaming beneath the red, white, and blue ribbons. She is a United States Army colonel, awarded the Bronze Star and countless commendations. Do you know what that means? Officer Mallory, chest still heaving, squared his shoulders. "Sir, we had reasonable suspicion out of state plates. Suspicious behavior." Stanton cut him off with a thunderous hand strike against the desk. "Reasonable suspicion? You think that justifies treating a decorated officer like a common criminal?" His steely gaze bore into both men, willing them to acknowledge their mistake. Mallory opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the captain's secure line phone trilled insistently. Stanton glanced at the caller ID, "Pentagon Command." He answered with a crisp, "Captain Stanton," and paused, listening. The room fell deathly silent, save for the slow tick of a wall-mounted clock. Finally, Stanton's expression softened into solemn resolve. He pressed the receiver to his chest and spoke into the handset in measured tones. "Yes, sir. Understood." He ended the call and set the phone down, turning back to the officers. "Colonel Rhodes is to be released immediately," he intoned, voice calm but unyielding. "You will escort her out of this facility at once, apologize for this egregious error, and write a full report on your actions. Failure to comply will result in your suspension and, possibly, criminal charges." For a moment, time seemed to halt. The two officers exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier bravado evaporated under the weight of that command. The captain's words hung in the air like a verdict. Justice, once delayed, would not be denied. And in that liminal silence, Colonel Rhodes' dignity-dented but unbroken shone brighter than any medal on her chest. In less than 60 seconds, the stale authority of the precinct dissolved into chaos. The heavy wooden door burst inward under the force of a combined, detachment stern-faced military police in crisp camo, sharp-suited agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and rolling press vans, whose satellite dishes whirred to life. Floodlights from body cameras and news crews bathed the room in an unforgiving glare, turning every scuff mark on the floor into a spotlight of scrutiny. Officer Murphy and Officer Mallory froze mid-step, their taut uniforms suddenly feeling like ill-fitting costumes. Mallory's hand hovered above his holstered weapon, as if uncertain whether he still held any real power. Across the room, the stoic faces of MP sergeants and FBI investigators conveyed a single message. This was no longer a local matter. A news reporter's microphone jabbed forward, its windscreen emblazoned with network logos. "Colonel Rhodes has been released," her voice crackled as she spoke live. "And the two officers responsible are now under federal investigation. Stay tuned for exclusive footage." The cameraman pivoted, focusing his macro lens on the stunned expressions of the patrolmen. Every bead of sweat, every flicker of panic, was magnified on screens that transmitted to living rooms from coast to coast. Outside, the hum of satellite trucks and the chatter of correspondents formed a chorus. Questions about racial profiling, abuse of power, and accountability reverberated like rolling thunder. A line of military police formed, guiding Colonel Amanda Rhodes through the flotsam of overturned chairs and discarded paperwork. Her posture remained erect, her bearing steady, an unspoken testament to training forged on battlefields overseas. Inside the precinct, the two officers stood stripped of authority. No longer the arbiters of order, they were now the subjects of national condemnation symbols of a system under judgment. Flashing cameras captured their every twitch. Mallory's jaw clenched in disbelief, Murphy's gaze flickering between defiance and shame. Their world, once delineated by routine traffic stops and local warrants, had collapsed under the weight of public scrutiny. In the glare of macro spotlights and live broadcasts, one truth crystallized. Justice would not tolerate prejudice disguised as protocol. And as viewers across the nation watched the scene unfold, it became clear that this dramatic intervention, fueled by federal intervention and relentless media focus, had transformed a single act of courage into a watershed moment for accountability. Outside the precinct, the air crackled with righteous indignation as hundreds of protesters flooded the broad plaza, their voices rising in a single, thunderous chorus. Men and women, black, white, Latino, Asian stood, shoulder to shoulder, brandishing hand-lettered placards that read, "Justice for Colonel Rhodes" and "End Racial Profiling Now." The late afternoon light caught the edges of their signs and illuminated determined faces lined with frustration, hope. A low rumble of drums began at the back of the crowd, marking the rhythm of unity. Elders in Sunday best clasped hands with teenagers in hoodies. Veterans in crisp uniforms exchanged nods with pastors waving Bibles. A banner unfurled across the front of the crowd proclaimed, "No more silence, no more shame." Children perched on parents' shoulders, small voices echoing the chant, "Rhodes, Rhodes, Rhodes." Then Colonel Amanda Rhodes emerged onto the makeshift stage, her olive-drab uniform immaculate, medals gleaming like beacons in the late-day sun. The crowd fell silent in respectful anticipation. The only sound was the faint click of camera shutters and the hushed rustle of flags in the breeze. Rhodes lifted her hand, pausing to scan the sea of faces, friends, strangers, allies all gathered by a shared conviction that justice must prevail. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried the weight of her ordeal. "Thank you," she began, pausing to allow the applause to swell and then subside. "What happened to me was neither an isolated incident nor simply the result of a misjudgment. It was the stark reminder that prejudice still festers in the very institutions entrusted with our safety." Murmurs of agreement coursed through the crowd. Rhodes continued, "This fight is not just about one decorated officer wrongfully detained. It is about every person of color who has ever sat handcuffed on the side of a road, denied the dignity of calling for help, and made to feel less than human in their own country." She raised her gaze to the rows of windows in the Precinct building behind her, a symbolic gesture directed at those who had underestimated her. "We stand here not to punish individuals, but to challenge a system. We stand because every driver deserves the right to call for protection and to be protected, regardless of the color of their skin." As she stepped back and the crowd erupted into chants once more, the plaza seemed to thrum with a new energy. This was more than a protest, it was a declaration that when courage meets community, real change becomes possible. And in that instant, Colonel Rhodes's words became the rallying cry for a movement demanding equality on every American road. Within hours of the viral protests and nationwide outrage, an official statement appeared on the White House website, its language both stern and unequivocal. "Any public servant who violates the oath to protect and serve the American people will be held fully accountable." This declaration signaled that Colonel Amanda Rhodes's wrongful detention had transcended a simple police incident. It had become a matter of national integrity. Back at the precinct, a hush fell over the corridors as word spread that the two officers involved would be placed on immediate administrative leave. Their badges were clipped off their uniforms, and their duty weapons collected and locked away. Within the day, they faced both internal disciplinary hearings and criminal inquiries. The familiar hum of radios and ringing phones gave way to a stark silence, broken only by the echo of departing footsteps. Over the next morning, news crews captured somber scenes of uniformed police staff entering the vacated offices. On one desk, a neatly typed memo announced, "Position terminated," its stark wording as cold as the linoleum floor beneath. On another, a small cardboard sign reading, "No longer employed," hung from an empty chair, the swivel chair's backrest gently swaying in the still air. These images, broadcast live to millions of homes, crystallized the sudden fall from grace of two officers, once entrusted with upholding the law. Analysts and commentators debated the scope of reform needed, from clearer bias training to more rigorous oversight of local departments. The White House reiterated its commitment to systemic change, urging Congress to fast-track legislation that would increase transparency, mandate body camera activation, and strengthen penalties for abuse of authority. Meanwhile, social media feeds brimmed with the hashtags "Justice for Rhodes" and "Accountability Now." Citizens shared photos of the "No Longer Employed" signs, alongside personal stories of encounters with law enforcement, painting a vivid tapestry of both progress and pain. Against this backdrop, Colonel Rhodes watched the unfolding events from her Camp Ridge office. Medals lay glinting on her desk, symbols of valor earned abroad while her phone buzzed with messages of support from fellow officers and civic leaders. She allowed herself a quiet moment of satisfaction, not merely for personal vindication, but because her ordeal had ignited a broader reckoning. As the nation absorbed, the shockwaves sent rippling through precincts and press rooms alike, one truth emerged. When authority falters, accountability must follow, and when the highest offices stand firm in defense of justice, the promise of protect and serve gains renewed meaning for every American. Colonel Amanda Rhodes's convoy rolled into Camp Ridge beneath a sky streaked with late afternoon light, the hum of engines giving way to the crisp cadence of an honor guard. Soldiers in dress blues snapped to attention, rifles slung across their shoulders. As the brass band struck up, "The Army Goes Rolling Along." Each note resonated through the courtyard, echoing off brick facades that had seen countless homecomings, but few so momentous. Rhodes stepped from her vehicle, gloved hand resting over her heart as she paused to take in the scene. Rows of disciplined figures, bayonets gleaming, flags rippling in a gentle breeze. As she approached the reviewing stand, her boots clicked in rhythm with marching feet. Commanding officers saluted her with stiff precision, their eyes reflecting both respect and relief. She returned each gesture with the poise of a leader who had weathered storms far harsher than protocol breaches yet. This welcome felt different, infused with the unspoken promise of redemption. Cameras from the base newspaper and local press lined the perimeter, capturing every moment for posterity. But no accolade, no medal, no triumphant headline compared to the sight that awaited beyond the gates. There, on a bench beneath an ancient oak, stood her young son, uniformed in miniature camouflage and clutching a small handmade sign, "Welcome home, Mama." His eyes lit up as he spotted her approach, and in an instant, the formalities of war and justice melted away into pure, unfiltered joy. Rhodes knelt, arms wide, and he sprinted into her embrace. "Mom, you did it! You won!" he exclaimed, voice trembling with pride and relief. His small frame fit perfectly against her side, and she felt the steady beat of his heart, strong, innocent, unburdened by the world's prejudices. She kissed his forehead, savoring the warmth of that moment. The victory of dignity restored, the triumph of truth over bias, distilled into a simple, perfect hug. In that embrace, medals and commands faded into the background. The bronze star on her chest felt heavy in her uniform pocket compared to the lightweight grace of her son's love. No award ceremony, no White House memo, no viral headline could rival the value of that heartfelt reunion. As the bass band struck the final bars and the honor guard stood down, Colonel Rhodes rose, hand still cradling her son, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, because she knew now that true strength springs from the bonds we protect and the justice we demand for those who follow in our footsteps. Beneath the soft glow of the fading lantern light, Amanda bent close to her son's ear, her voice trembling with both resolve and tenderness. "Sweetheart, I know tonight has been frightening, but our fight for justice has only just begun." In that hushed moment, her heart swelled with a fierce warmth, every beat fueling the spark of hope she carried. Outside, darkness settled like a velvet cloak over the world, shadows deepening around the silent courtyard. Yet within Amanda's chest, a fire blazed unextinguished, lit by the trust in her son's wide eyes, and the knowledge that her struggle echoed the stories of countless others. Each whispered promise to stand firm, each courageous breath drawn in the face of oppression, became a thread woven into a larger tapestry of change. "As long as we hold on," she continued, voice soft but unwavering, "no darkness can ever snuff out the light of justice." And in that intimate embrace, viewers everywhere could feel the profound truth that every act of courage, big or small, ignites a movement, and together, we carry the torch until real equality shines upon us all. This story reminds us that silence equates to complicity in injustice. When one person dares to speak out, they not only defend themselves, but also give voice to millions who were silenced. The message conveyed is that each individual carries a responsibility to transform the system, whether by sharing experiences, speaking up in support, or backing justice movements. Please leave a comment with your perspective. How long do you think it will take for racism truly to end? Will it be by 2050, 2075, or never? Your predictions will spark discussion and create opportunities for collective community action.